Hey Vinnie, thanks for having me here today. I'm Sean. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Blink. Blink is a mobile application for frontline workers, and I'll get into explaining a bit more about what that
Sean, it's
means.
great to see you again. It's good to meet you in Orlando a couple of months ago at the Rising event, and hopefully you've settled in pretty well in New England. So, looking forward to this.
Yeah, my wife and I and our little dog are enjoying the life in Boston. Yeah, so no, it's good. It's good to be here. Yeah, it was great to see you at Rising as well. Yeah, Vinny. So just maybe a bit of background on Blink, and feel free to dive in and interrupt me and ask a few questions along the way if that's okay. Um, so I'm sure no one needs any explanation or context about some of the challenges that are happening in the front line today. There isn't really many frontline organizations out there right now that aren't struggling with staff retention, aren't struggling with attracting enough people, aren't struggling with how to engage a mobile deskless workforce. And it's really starting to show in all of the operational challenges that different industries are having, from transit to logistics to retail, hospitality, manufacturing. Like, all of these industries are really struggling to attract and retain enough staff to deliver their services to their customers. So that's kind of the world in which we play in. The kind of premise behind Blink is that existing desk space.
Sean, your definition of frontline are people who are mobile, who are out in the field, or in
Right. Yeah. So, we think about nurses, we think about refuge collectors, we think about retail staff, we think about hospitality staff, we think about people, aged care workers, anyone who doesn't sit behind a desk all day. They probably don't have a workplace device like a laptop or a phone given to them, so they've probably just got personal devices. Most don't have a workplace email address or sort of digital identity necessarily. Their only digital footprint in the organization is often their entry in a HR platform or rostering platform, but they're to a large part digitally disconnected from the organization. And we kind of at Blink, we kind of started asking why that was and what we could do to help solve that problem. And kind of what we found was in most front lines, Vinny, and most frontline organizations, they're kind of running this kind of hybrid world of a lot of paper still, a lot of manual processes, a lot of manual workflow, a lot of manual communication that's happening. And there are digital tools that have been invested in and are available through web portals and through mobile apps, but they tend to have very low adoption with frontline workers. So we kind of started to try and understand why that was. And what we came to discover at Blink is the reason that deskless workers and the reason that a lot of mobile solutions for deskless workers don't get very high adoption is just the friction to downloading individual mobile apps on your personal smartphone is really high, and then logging in with a username and password. You can't remember the password. You have to try and reset it. You call an IT help desk. You haven't got a workplace email address. It's really hard for deskless workers, frontline workers, to access a lot of these tools and services. So they just don't. So when we often go into our customers and we map out the entire kind of employee experience, or the jobs to be done, the day-to-day life of a frontline worker, whether that's swapping a shift, proving your qualifications are still valid, whether it's booking some leave, whether it's accessing your pay stub, reporting an incident, doing some e-learning. All of these things today live in disparate, disconnected systems in a lot of our customers. And that makes it really hard for frontline workers to access those digital tools, especially when they don't have a laptop or a phone.
I like that you've considered accidents, right? Something where you don't even think about in a white collar desk environment. So
yeah, it's one of our top use cases. I'll talk about it in a minute. A quick case study is just how we were able to drive up in one of our customers' reports of near misses. What we found was, in the old way of working, it was a paper form. It was really, no one wants to queue at a desk to fill in a paper form at the end of their shift. They want to go home. And also there's a stigma sometimes attached with reporting a near miss, and you've got to hand that form to someone else. Whereas if you're going to anonymize that, make it mobile, make it convenient, they can do it on their phone. They can track the progress of it in the background. It's much more convenient. So yeah, near misses and accidents is a great use case. So, a lot of the world that we live in at Blink is around, like, the question we often get asked, or the problem that people are looking to solve, is how do we improve employee engagement? How do we connect with our frontline? How do we give them a voice? How do we listen? How do we communicate more effectively? Now, there's tons of tools out there for doing that. There's tons of communication apps or already existing. So what's different about Blink, right? Well, what we see is that communication is an essential part of the jigsaw here, but communication on its own, a bit like those other 15 apps I just showed, isn't sufficient to really get frontline workers excited. No one wakes up in the morning going, I must download and install that company communication app. So what we tried to do at Blink was kind of, could we bring all these things together inside of one application? So by connecting to the entire ecosystem of the workers' experience, all the components that they need to be effective, whether that's pay slips, whether it's Workday, whether it's ADP, whether it's Oracle Financials, whether it's SuccessFactors, whether it's something else. Can we bring these things together in a so that everything can be accessed through one application? Is what we do at Blink. So Blink is a mobile app for frontline workers. It's a single application. They don't need an email address. They can log in through a QR code or through their mobile phone number. They install it on their personal smartphone, and then we present to them the entire ecosystem of everything they need to access through that one application. And we do that ourselves through different types of integrations, be that single sign-on, be that API integrations, and we have some other ways of integrating as well with all of the most popular tools and products that are out there, so that we can give frontline workers this kind of one-stop shop. So yeah, that can be, you can kind of get an idea for that they don't need to download multiple applications. They can access their rostering system, etc., etc. Maybe a quick case study to bring this to life. So the first big deployment we did, which was about 3 years ago now, was in the UK, where I, if you can tell from my accent, where I'm from. And we rolled out to Stagecoach, which was about 21,000, 22,000 transit workers there, bus drivers, mechanics, those types of folks. And you can kind of see some of the stats here that really show the stickiness of the application. So if you bring everything together and enable it to be accessed through one application, you can get incredibly high adoption rates, incredibly high engagement rates with the application. And what that means is, because people are coming there because they want to, because it's providing them value, they're going there to swap a shift, they're going there to check their payroll, they might be going there to log a payroll inquiry if it's not quite right, they might be going there to see their scores on a telematics application. But while they're there, you can really capture and engage them with other types of content. So in our newsfeed, we have top-down critical communication, like route changes, like equipment faults, like mandatory learning and training that they need to do as well. But bring all these things together in one, you really start to get a flywheel going of creating that kind of digital hub that everyone goes to every day, that everyone wants to.
You're really into field service also. Do you get that functionality from, where do you get that from? Not from
yeah, Vinnie, exactly. So inside of Blink, we have very basic, maybe very is a being a bit too modest, but we have basic forms and workflow functionality that we can do. But anything over and above that, we integrate with third-party applications. So yes, we integrate with lots of field service apps where people need them. And that integration, by the way, can be to a web-based application. So it can be, we can load a browser or we can load a web app inside of Blink that's authenticated, so the frontline worker doesn't need to remember another username and password. And there are ways we secure that as well. Or we can directly link to another mobile app. In the case of a field service, that's quite common.
Is that taking you into augmented reality in the field service, or are you staying away? Is it more basic assignments and routing and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely on the more basic end of the spectrum. The customers that we work with are currently in a space where they have maybe digitized some of the daily workflow they have, but not other parts of it. But no, we haven't got into any of augmented reality or anything like that yet. Yeah. For us, the largest sector we serve today is healthcare. So that can be hospitals, it can be aged care, in-home care, behavioral healthcare, recovery healthcare, those kind of things. And we're also large in the EMS industry. So the healthcare being the primary one, then transit's our second biggest sector. So a lot of the here in the US, in the UK, and in Australia, a lot of the global transit providers, be that bus, rail, or other types of mass transit. And then we have a long tail into kind of retail, hospitality, warehousing, logistics, manufacturing. So for us, a lot of our workers are out on the road each day. They're remote from the organization they serve. It can be quite a lonely job. They can have to wait till they get back to a base, or maybe they never go out to a base, so they kind of,
Sure.
don't have a convenient way of doing those things. The final bit of the jigsaw here, Vinny, is around analytics. So once we have built this application that people want to engage with, they want to install, we're having incredibly high retention rates. So what you often see with these types of kind of frontline engagement apps or deskless worker communication apps is that they might get an initial spike of adoption and they kind of tail off. So we kind of see the opposite, where the adoption goes up over time as word gets around and as we add in more functionality. And what that enables us to do is really look deeply at what's happening inside the organization. So giving people a dashboard today of what's happening inside of Blink, why are people opening the application, what other applications or services are they accessing, when, so we can start looking at what's happening in terms of productivity on the front line. From a communication point of view, we're looking at what types of content get traction, when, who's posting them, what kind of, is it a video, is it a picture, is it some other kind of message, and then really looking at trends on that, so we can start highlighting to leadership of the organization, hey, look, this particular piece of content got a lot of engagement locally in one of your locations, maybe you should take a look at that. You can boost it, so you can start amplifying real stories that kind of bring out the culture in the organization as well. And then we're currently working at the moment on expanding this into well, we've already expanded it into looking at turnover, so you can start looking at correlation between those kind of engagement stats with the application and with services and with content, with how does that map to staff turnover. So we're starting to look at, okay, so if one part of the organization is that maybe the local manager is great at listening and responding to comments and responding to questions, and that correlates with lower turnover, then we can start highlighting that. And then the next part of this that we're currently building right now is around workforce analytics, around pulse surveys, periodic staff surveys. So bringing
in the apps you had, I forget, was recruiting one of the apps?
It's not actually, Vinny. So we have some onboarding functionality. That's kind of the,
so it assumes they're already on the payroll, and then
kind of, yeah. So we can onboard people at any point. So we do have customers that onboard people as soon as they kind of an offer is made and accepted, but that's the kind of earliest that we would we currently get engaged. And then we have customers who run kind of like pre-start kind of life cycle communications. They collect information from frontline workers. They can collect information from frontline workers before they start, and then obviously afterwards. We actually have quite a few customers, quite interesting, who use Blink either after people leave or pools of sort of itinerant workers. So maybe they've got seasonal staff where they come on and off shift through the year, or maybe they've got staff that have left, but they might want to advertise sort of peaks in demand or shifts to those workers, and they want to build that sort of alumni community. So we have quite a bit of that happens as well.
How about learning? Is anyone trying out learning with this, or?
Yeah, so a bit like forms, we have some basic functionality inside of Blink that we can do around learning, using our video functionality, using the content bits of functionality that we have, and then we integrate with a variety of the more popular, and that's growing all the time. We integrate with things like GoOne and a lot of the e-learning platforms, where our customers can not only allow frontline workers to access those learning opportunities in a very frictionless way, sort of one click, but also they use the feed and use notifications in our app to advertise to those workers that there is either something available or something that they should do inside of those learning applications. So with some of those learning applications, we've got quite deep sort of two-way integrations that really make it super simple for workers to do the required learning modules. Yeah, so in terms of analytics, the final bit of this jigsaw that we're building in Q4 this year, aiming to launch in January, is the kind of surveying and measuring of the current health of the front line, and then that's kind of leading up to this what we call frontline intelligence, which is a dashboard that we're building around which parts of the organization are running hot, which ones are running cold, where's there opportunities, and then providing actionable insights around like training opportunities or behavioral change opportunities.
Now, most of the HCM vendors, so Workday, Oracle, have their own analytics, right?
Yeah.
Does this is more focused on the mobile that segment of the market, that segment of the employee base that's more mobile, right? So it'd be a little more customized analytics.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of things to say about that. One would be this has very much been driven by our existing customer base, where they are struggling with really low response rates when they're doing surveying or measurement on the front line. So we have customers where they're running annual frontline surveys or periodic frontline surveys where they're only getting maybe 20 or 30% sort of response rates. So the sample size is really small. So doing that through Blink and really driving up those response rates. We've seen customers who have 6-8 times response rates when the surveys are delivered through Blink in a really frictionless way. So that's the first bit is increasing response rates. And then the second bit of this that we're really interested in is can we map together these 3 bits of data? So engagement with communications and content inside of the application, along with the turnover stats that we're seeing on the platform, and then the final bit of the jigsaw is the measurement or the surveying. Can we bring these 3 things together to give a unique insight into what's happening on the platform? I think that's where we feel that we can add some value that isn't maybe possible elsewhere.
Great.
So yeah, that's kind of where we're at today, Vinny.
So what's next? What big feature set are you going to introduce, or is it's reasonably good and now it's a customer acquisition phase?
So we're definitely in a customer acquisition phase, and we're definitely scaling significantly, especially here in the US, the sales team and the go-to-market team, solutions consulting teams. We're putting our foot down pretty hard.
You said in the US the focus is more healthcare, hospitality type verticals.
Yeah, it's across the whole piece. So definitely healthcare, definitely hospitality, definitely retail, and then logistics, manufacturing. And then we have a long tail of customers in all sorts of sectors, from chains of dentistry practices through to agriculture. Like, it never ceases to amaze me how large some of these frontline sectors are that you just don't even really realize or think of on a daily basis. Whether that's the mining sector where we have some customers, or whether it's services that keep sort of the world running every day, from recycling through to local government services. So yeah, anyone who's not sat behind a desk is definitely somewhere where we want to be, helping them access their organization and really connect to their organizations, not just connect to the organization's sort of workflow, information exchange, those kind of things, but also just connect more broadly to the people they work with, connect to the organization's mission, vision, values, so they feel part of something bigger than themselves,
Sean, excellent. So come back in 6 months and give us an update.
Yeah, I'd love to, Vinny. Definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you.